Coming up on this edition of the Racing Roundtable, I'm Tyler Jones, and I'm going to tell you why Carson Hocevar is the villain that NASCAR needs right here and right now.
I'm Dominic Aragon, and I'm going to tell you why a crew chief change midseason will not make a difference for Kyle Busch.
I'm Matt Kemp. I'll tell you why Talladega kind of sucks right now.
Glad to have you with us here on the Racing Roundtable. Tyler Jones here with you. So glad that you guys can stop by as we have a great show ahead. As Paul Fodde is set to join us here in just a bit, a podcaster, racer extraordinaire. We got a great conversation with Paul coming up in just a few moments from right now. But before we do that, folks, let's talk Talladega. Carson Hocevar gets into victory lane for the first time in our Cup Series career in his 91st career start, gets it done, and did so in such Carson Hocevar fashion with one of the best victory celebrations that we've ever seen. Driving from the door on the windowsill, it was unbelievable. As Mike Joy said in the post race, it is going to go down as one of those wins that we will all remember where we were when that happened. And it's the first of many to come for Carson Hocevar. He's got an incredibly bright future in this sport. And as I wrote about on NASCARRoundtable.com earlier this week, this is somebody that does not have friends on the racetrack. He's got a lot of enemies. And he is kind of divisive of sorts. Fans either love him or hate him already. But nonetheless, he has embraced this villain role. He has not run away from it like we saw Ross Chastain and others. He's being himself. And I think he's great for the sport. He's got an incredibly bright future, and the best is still yet to come. Dominic, what a day for Carson Hocevar.
Another first-time winner and somebody who's very relatable to the fan base. I don't know if I agree that he's very hated. I think he's actually very well liked by the fans. He's hated by many of the competition and the drivers that he's around, but he's a very well liked driver with the people in the grandstands because he relates to them. He's somebody like us on this show who's very computer savvy, who did stop motions back in the day, who has done sim racing and streaming. He's a very relatable driver to the younger generation of fans. So I think that's why a lot of drivers really, or a lot of fans attach themselves to Carson Hocevar. And now that he's won and just has that more credibility to him, Tyler, man, the floodgates could certainly open up here for Carson Hocevar, that 77 team. They are building something very special.
Matt, let's talk about the win for Carson Hocevar there. This was not something that he was just lucky and fell in the right place at the right time. Carson had a good car, was running up front for much of the day, and the moves that he made there at the end to get the momentum and hold off Chris Buescher and company, he was a true wheelman out there.
Yeah, you're not kidding. And to be honest with you, it was a long time coming. I mean, we've seen him inspire in general run really well at the drafting style tracks over the last couple of years, and now with all their information from Gibbs, I mean, all of their newfound information this year and their newfound speed, yeah, there's no question they were going to be in contention. So, and Carson for sure. There was a video. I don't know. Did you guys see that video of him flying up through the middle of the pack? I mean, it was a comment on there. I don't know who put it on there, but they said, just take the position. I got a wife and kids at home, you know. So it was pretty incredible. I mean, he flew right up through the middle of the pack and was making moves all day long. So no surprise. And I think you're spot on, Tyler. He's exactly what the sport needs at this time.
He is something else. Now, the racing at Talladega, Matt, I'll go back to you on this. Fuel saving, NASCAR tried to combat it with changing the stages. That did not work. This was not the best Talladega race by any stretch of the imagination. We did see one of, if not the biggest big ones ever, with that crash that happened in the second stage. I thought the race was fine. Wasn't my favorite, but I enjoyed it. What say you?
Yeah, for sure. You know, honestly, the hardest part about watching the Talladega races at this point in time, and is really, I think it's to do with the package mostly. I don't know the fix personally, but ever since obviously this Generation 7 car has been introduced, the drafting tracks have been one of the tracks that have struggled. And don't get me wrong, there's still exciting moments. Like we've had great finishes, side by side finishes, a lot of major crashes, obviously, and we're I don't think we're out of the woods on that yet, because even in that big one at the end of the straightaway, Bubba's car was still starting to take flight there. So I think there's more to be done. Anytime you got a big piece of big flat surface under the car, when they get turned around, it's gonna have those problems. But in terms of the racing, it's just kind of tough. These guys can't really do a whole lot when they're all running wide open. It's kind of single file. You saw that for a little while, and I mean, don't get me wrong, that's kind of what they used to do, running around the top when they had more horsepower and less drag, and so it's kind of hard because the drag does make the finishes exciting, but for the most part, you're kind of stuck in line with where you're at, and that's why it's such a track position race. So if these guys had a little more power to do um, what they needed to do, and I don't know what the answer is to that. There's people smarter than me, hopefully, that can figure that out. But uh, these guys just have to be able to make moves and make runs, not necessarily on their own, but just that's not gridlock. So
Right.
if we can get to that point, we're going to be in a lot better shape with these races.
Dominic, some other notables from Sunday's race. Chris Buescher with a good finish in second, had a chance to win. Alex Bowman, much needed strong day for him in third. Chase Elliott in fourth. And then how about Zane Smith coming in fifth? What stood out to you of everybody else besides Josefar?
Ricky Stenhouse running up front again. Zane Smith running up front these style of tracks. I picked him last week. Todd Gilliland was in the lead pack with a few laps to go. It didn't work out, right? But Alex Bowman with a good rebound, a big points day, and a big momentum swing for the 4-8, which I think is probably the most needed of anybody among that top five, besides Carson Hocevar, your winner. But Alex Bowman needing a good run, the 47 team. I think even though a lot of these teams know they're not going to win at a lot of places, the super speedway racing is the great equalizer. And we got to see a lot of drivers that we typically don't talk about. They got to run up front on Sunday's race.
Yeah, certainly so. Matt, you got the chance to race at Talladega this weekend. How was it?
Man, Talladega is incredible. I know I'm going from one hot take to saying it's incredible, but truly, track is an incredible facility, and man, that experience is unlike anything. I'll tell you that right now. It's everything and more than you'd expect, and I would go out on a limb and say it's harder than a video game. I'll tell you that. So, super cool experience, super grateful for it, and obviously it was a bummer with kind of what happened to us, kind of being out of it before it started, but still got to experience a lot and had a really great time, and some attrition kind of kept us around, and we finished better than we started at least. So that was a good time.
That's good. That's good to hear. Glad things went well for you. Dominic, tell us about our guest this week.
Well, so Matt and I have probably known for more than half our life, I would say, Matt. So
Man,
if
that's
you have
crazy
been a
when you
part,
put it that way.
yeah, we're getting old here. We're definitely getting old. But nonetheless, Paul is somebody who's been a part of the NASCAR community for a very long time. If you have followed his work, you might know him under the banner name Lego NASCAR 88 fan, and for his work with NASCAR Stop Motions. Maybe you raced against him in some NR 2003 racing leagues, maybe on iRacing, and most recently had the opportunity, because he's a racer himself, he got to compete in the ARCA test in Daytona there alongside with you, Matt, a few months back. So we've been trying to get Paul on the show, and so happy it has worked out. Paul, thank you so much for joining us here on the Racing Roundtable this week.
Dominic, Tyler, Matt, thank you all for having me.
Yeah, it's going to be an incredible conversation ahead here on the show. But Paul, take us back to the beginning for you, where it started for you, your fandom with NASCAR motorsports. Where did all that initially pique your interest?
Well, for starters, I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. So the first drivers that I ever heard of were like Rusty Wallace and Kenny Schrader and all of those guys. I would say my first time watching NASCAR, I remember it actually. It was the 2001 EA Sports 500 at Talladega. So obviously Talladega holds near and dear to my heart. It was the first race I ever watched, and yeah, I've just loved it ever since. I mean, going down the toy aisle, it's amazing what one small purchase of a diecast car will do to a kid and shape the rest of their life. And that's what it did for me. Um, I loved the video games, the PlayStation 2, NASCAR 06 Total Team Control, all of that. And eventually it led to me making stop motion animations and uploading them to YouTube.
And you were a big part of that pioneer day too, 2008, 2009, when that community was starting to form and really take its shape. Matt and I were part of that as well. Carson Hocevar was a part of that as well. Raja Caruth is well involved with it. So really cool that the stop motion thing really got to blend the passion of motorsports and really set the trajectory, I think, for a lot of people in this industry.
Yeah, I would say it's really cool you mentioned both Carson Hocevar and Raja Caruth. Um, Carson Hocevar, he really liked that series that I did, and unfortunately, I never can find the files anymore because that particular channel doesn't exist. I still have a lot of the older stop motions, but he really liked the From Trucks to Cup videos that I did way back in the day. So, ironically, as fate would have it, in 2022, 2023, whatever year it was that Chase Elliott got suspended, I was there in the infield at St. Louis, and I got to catch Carson right before. We had a brief Twitter interaction before that, and I went up to him, and I actually had one of the die casts from that stop motion in my pocket. I wanted to bring it for him, knowing that he would be there. He was going to be there in the truck race anyway. So I brought that for him, and ever since then, he and I have been cool ever since. He calls me a stud. I'm like, oh, yeah, you're the stud now. So it's just super cool. And Raja too, I've given him a die cast as well. How big that community has just grown. There's other drivers too, I'm sure, that have watched those stop motions, and it's been a part of their childhood and a part of their life now.
It's crazy. You talk about that, Paul, and kind of where everything started and how a purchase of one diecast can change somebody's life and trajectory, Um, to be honest with you, I was kind of in that same boat. I mean, obviously, I've talked to you guys about how I got started because my parents brought me home a Jimmy Johnson diecast with SpongeBob on it. So it's just, it's crazy how literally the purchase of one diecast can change the trajectory of somebody's life. And I know just from walking around with you at the track, I mean, how many people did we run into and know that had either sim raced or done stop motions? I mean, there was just a ton of people in the industry at the ARCA East race even earlier this year.
Yeah, it's honestly crazy how many of those people that like we've sim raced with, that we've been in communities with, that have kind of blended into what our dreams were as a kid. Like if we could go back in time and tell 12-year-old us that someday we'd be in the same place as some of our heroes, like that would be crazy. But as life would have it, it just happened. And I'm so grateful that a lot of people that we know, whether we're still connected or not, have that opportunity now to live out their dream, and myself as well.
Yeah, it was a ton of fun being a part of that community, and I look at like our time doing that, what our era was. We were maybe like those first generation of these NASCAR stop motion makers, and I'll be the first to say mine were not the best. They were very choppy, but where I could make up for it was putting in graphics with Photoshop and stuff. So I felt like I could compete with the likes of Paul and Matt and Xander and all these other cool people that got to do the stop motions, but only because I could do some stuff on the back end of things. I think I got a little lazy with some of the filming, but nonetheless, it was a great community, and it evolved into sim racing in the early 2010s. And just it's crazy how that community just snowballed from there. And there's so many people that stay in touch from it. In fact, you hear Carson Hocevar say many of his friends, kind of what Tyler was talking about earlier. He's not friends with any of the racers. He brings his friends to the racetrack. And a lot of those friends we know mutually. There's a lot of stop motion makers and there's a lot of sim racers that are friends with Carson Hocevar from that community.
Yeah, during the Dale Jr. download that he was on, I would want to say a year ago, there were a few names that he name dropped. And I was like, I've raced with him. I know him. Like it is crazy, but there's also many others as well. I mean, Matt, you and I, we connected with Brad Perez at Kansas, and he was doing tires for Cletus. I mean, that's just crazy. And his opportunity now, he'll be racing at Texas. So, yeah, it is wild how the trajectory from us playing with our diecast on the ground, making them out of like pizza boxes or cardboard from Michael's or anything like that, how that trajectory, and also too the game NASCAR Racing 2003 season, how that has just evolved into what it is now.
Yeah,
That's
awesome. It's crazy. It's crazy.
So Paul, what are you up to these days now?
Well, I will tell you, my time is pretty crazy because I'm hustling. I work a regular job at home. I live in St. Louis, and every now and then, I get the opportunity to announce. I announce at the Gateway Kartplex, which is inside Worldwide Technology Raceway, and I have the opportunity through my kart racing team, Margay Racing, to announce at several tracks in the Midwest. They're kart tracks, but nonetheless, it gives me an opportunity to use what I did in stop motion days, announcing those things and announcing real racing now. Every now and then, I'm not competing for a championship this year, but I've been racing as much as I can through karting and looking for some other opportunities to, jump behind the wheel and anything else. Working on something a little bit bigger, but yeah, I'd love to. That's what I've been up to now.
At the beginning of the
on a
show,
little
and it's
bigger.
a great story, but I know Matt helped you with it as well too. But how did your ARCA test come together and being able to get behind the wheel of a stock car at Daytona? Tell us about that journey.
Well, let me just say I've been karting for 10 years. I've raced at really iconic racetracks: Daytona International Speedway, Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the Rock Island Grand Prix, the Quincy Grand Prix. If you haven't heard of those races, you have to. They're really cool street races that we compete in our karts. And let me tell you, you need some cojones for those because you're literally inches away from disaster. But in a kart, it's so much fun. And yeah, so I've been doing that for about 10 years, and I've kind of kicked it around saying, the ARCA test, I'd be by myself. I have aspirations of doing bigger cars, bigger racing, just as Matt had. I mean, I've been talking to Matt about it for a while. Didn't work out in 2024, obviously, when he was able to compete in that, drive in that test. But I made up my mind saying this year is the year I have to do it. So with that being said, I talked to Matt. I emailed Andy Hillenberg on a whim. And I was originally going to talk to multiple teams about it, but Andy was the first one to contact me back. It took him like maybe a couple days to do that. And we talked a little bit, and it was amazing. It was amazing how much he was willing to, he listened to what I wanted to get out of it. And eventually it led to me going to PRI, talking to the fine folks at ARCA, and then once all that was worked out, the approval process, I will say the approval process has evolved, after the whole Cletus deal. I think it used to be something where like the Daytona test would get you approved for more races, but now it's just a little bit tighter. And that's how it ended up. I mean, the week before I raced a kart at Daytona during Daytona Kart Week, and the next week I hopped in a stock car.
So you had your practice the week before, obviously on a little bit different layout, but you got some laps around Daytona nonetheless. And I think I told you this before going out there, but there is no one better to learn from and to start with than Andy Hillenberg. Andy does an incredible job, honestly, of helping guys who have aspirations to get to that next level, to do all the different things in the ARCA scene, and there's nobody better to learn from who's been around longer and has the experience and the ability to teach. He does an incredible job at that, and he's so good at it. So super glad that you were able to get that opportunity with him, much less, right? So I'm curious to ask what you expected and how it actually ended up feeling, like the sensations. I know there were some things that I felt my first time that really kind of blew my mind that I wasn't expecting to be as intense. Did you have some of those things too?
I will say, jumping from the karting that I do and to a stock car, that was a massive jump. I would not recommend it to the average person, but knowing you, Kemp, and knowing the people that I've been surrounded by, I needed to take a chance on myself, and I wanted to do that. And I'll tell you, at first I was very nervous. 12-hour drive down there, I was calling somebody. I was talking for 12 hours to somebody, at least for an hour, 2 hours about it. Once my name was on the entry list, like that's when the nerves started kicking in. And, the next day, after chatting with you, Ryan Vargas was also a huge help, really calming me down, kind of keeping me on my toes. But just walking into that driver's meeting and seeing the people that I was surrounded by, I was like, holy cow, this is some serious stuff. And then from there on, getting all suited up, I think Trent Curtis was the driver before me, and Trent also made a huge jump in his racing career. So I got some pointers from him beforehand, and really tried to use that as much to my advantage as possible. I will say, getting out of the garage for me was a struggle. I probably stalled it more than anybody there. And I'll give myself some trouble for that. The long first gear, it's a little difficult. I honestly practice that on iRacing, but that doesn't do its justice. But eventually I got around to it. My crew chief Dick, and my spotter John, they were such huge helps. And by the time I got rolling and heading from turn one down the backstretch, I was just WFO the entire time. And they were giving me pointers as far as what lines to run, where to go. And I prepared for the G-forces going into the corner, but it didn't feel that bad. It felt natural. It felt like everything was going. I didn't realize, well, I shouldn't say I didn't realize, but I didn't think 170 plus mile an hour would feel that way, but it felt like natural, and it was unbelievable.
So, Paul, let's get your take on what's going on in the NASCAR world. What was your reaction to what Carson Hocevar did this weekend, getting to victory lane there at Talladega?
Listen, I I think Carson Hocevar is awesome. I mean, from personally knowing him and just how he carries himself, he absolutely 100% after everything that's gone wrong, Atlanta, Daytona, and all the second places he's had, like you couldn't write the script any better. He's in the black 77, the Chili's car. I know he's almost won in the Spectrum car, but it felt like, his first win had to be in the Chili's car.
In the
Like,
Intimidante.
in the Intimidante, that's correct. And, the sport really needs some personality. And he's a personality that I feel like all ages can relate to. It I think one thing's for sure, a lot of people found it hard to relate to some drivers, with how I would say business savvy, clean cut a lot of them are. And with Carson, he's just himself. And businesses, the businesses that are on his car, they like it. And with that, it's just a snowball effect. And now I feel like, especially hanging with Cletus too, who I feel like he Cletus has adopted Carson as his big brother or something like that. Like that that duo might be dangerous in the coming years.
Yeah, very well could be. And with that said, looking ahead to this weekend's race at Texas, Paul, what's kind of your outlook? What excites you about Texas and that track?
Well, Texas is a great state, and I look forward to it. I mean, our friends, David Starr, he's a proud Texan, and I I like Texas now. There was a point in time where it was kind of like, you're not really looking forward to the mile and a half tracks as a fan. Um, but it'll be a decent race. There's some chaos that could happen, and shake things up to make it an exciting finish. I mean, we saw last year with Michael McDowell and the Joey Logano battle that happened, and I feel like we are. It's time for a good Texas finish, and who better to be involved than our man Carson Hocevar.
Yeah. Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. Can't wait to see how it plays out. We'll have more on Texas coming up later on in the show. But let's shift gears, guys, now and get to our news and notes for the top headlines in the sport this week. Dom, we got a lot going on. Where do you want to start?
Starting with Texas odds to moons to big bold claims. We're going to start with Kyle Busch's crew chief swap. Earlier this week, Richard Childress Racing announced that Jim Pullman is out as crew chief on top of the 8 box, a marriage that lasted 10 races. And with that change comes the crew chief who was atop the pit box at the end of the 8 teams tenure in 2025 with Andy Street. Street returns to the top of the pit box. Richard Childress making a mid-season swap, much like how they did in 2024 with Alexander atop the box with the 3 team. Now, Tyler, I usually leave my opinions out of this, but because this was my hot take, I don't know how a crew chief change midway through the year is going to make a difference. We did see that with Justin Alexander in the win at Richmond in 2024. Maybe they're trying to replicate that here, but it seems like the 8th season is far gone. A 10th place finish at Talladega for Kyle Busch is the best they've been able to pull off this year. I just don't see how throwing the kitchen sink at this in May is going to make a difference.
Well, I think a few things can be true here, Dom. Yes, they needed to make a change. Pullman was doing a bad job, but I don't see a new crew chief getting them out of this situation. I think the issues are bigger than the crew chief itself. When you talk about what RCR is doing under the hood and the race cars they're building. Those are issues that are beyond what the crew chief can control. And so, with that, like, I don't expect things to all of a sudden magically get better and improve for this team. Bottom line, ECR engines are a disaster right now. With you see what's going on with them and Trackhouse, the ECR program is miles behind the Hendrick program. And if I'm Team Chevy, I got to be thinking right now, okay, what do we need to do to get Hendrick to share notes with RCR to get these guys on the same page? Or, I mean, call me crazy. If I was Team Chevy, I'd threaten to shut down the engine program at ECR and say everybody that's Chevy is going to run under the Hendrick umbrella because you guys are making us look bad and this is not doing us any favors of any sorts here. Like there's a lot going on and I don't think this is getting fixed anytime soon, Matt.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's ECR's definitely got a lot going on that front, but I don't know if they're going to be quite as drastic on it. I think they've got too good of a relationship there to um, really rock the boat too much. But hey, maybe that's been the problem for a while, right? Because it's been a while since RCR has kind of been where they need to be. So it might take something like that. And in terms of moving the crew chief around, because I believe Pullman actually went to like a different competition role at RCR. I don't think he got let go from RCR. So moving people around like that, sometimes they just don't jive. I mean, you could tell throughout on the just on the radio this year, they were not having a good time. So I got a feeling that a change absolutely needed to be made. Whether that change is going to make a difference or not, time will tell. But I think you're spot on with saying that the issues are a lot larger than a crew chief change. So I wouldn't expect to see that happen overnight. But who knows? Maybe 2, 3 months down the road, we see a difference because of it. We'll see.
Paul, your thoughts on this situation here? He's got to turn his mic on. Battle versus technology.
Yeah, it's
Paul is losing. You turn the mic on, Paul. That's how you talk.
1 second. All right, there we go.
he's done it.
Yes, you guys can cut that out. um, but yeah, we've seen a downward trajectory, unfortunately, with the 8 team. I think he mentioned it in that one podcast that he recently did. After Gateway in what was it, 2023, NASCAR was kind of going against the things that they were doing as a team. And I feel like ever since then, that advantage that he felt in that next gen car when he was with Randy Burnett, that advantage slipped. And now they've been trying to replicate that magic, and it just hasn't been working. I mean, I'm not saying anything bad about Kyle Busch, the driver. However, the magic that they found at the beginning of 2023, they have yet to find it. There have been some small spikes, but RCR as a whole is on that downward trajectory for the start of this year. Now, I will say they usually find some sort of magic in the second half of the season. We've seen it with Austin Dillon a couple of years in a row. And there are some good tracks for Kyle Busch that are coming up here. So we'll see if that crew chief swap will do anything. But yeah, that's something we'll have to keep an eye on.
Dominic, we know Kyle's contract's coming up here pretty soon. I can't imagine there's a world that he's back in this car next year. He's so unhappy. The performance isn't there. And you go back to Denny's comments a couple weeks ago, where I thought Denny was respectful and he towed the line as much as he could, but still they didn't go over well with Kyle Busch. I think if you're Kyle, like in theory, yeah, you could finish your career with RCR, but you're not going to get in victory lane that often, and that just kind of is what it is. With people like Denny and others questioning his talent level. I think if you're Kyle, you're not going to be content. You're not going to settle with this sorry ass performance that we're seeing from this organization. And you also want to show who you are and prove yourself that you still have something, whether it's going to Spire or somebody else like that. I know the options could be somewhat limited, but Kyle can't be content going out this way. And I think that's what it comes down to, why he moves on.
He's still got the talent to be able to go out and win races and win championships. Denny Hamlin's doing it, and he's proving it. And he's older than Kyle Busch. So there's plenty of years left. There's plenty of gas left in the tank, like I've said all season with Kyle Busch. But right now, RCR, the 8 team with Kyle Busch, is not the right fit.
Who do you think is the right fit, Dom?
I think you mentioned Spire off the top. I think would be great. Michael McDowell, I don't know what his contract situation is or if they'd move that around, but a 71 Kyle Busch would be outrunning a Kyle Busch in the 8 car by miles.
Matt, where do you think he races next year?
Honestly, I agree with Dom. I really think, and I don't know. I know there's a lot of moving pieces in the offseason. I think we kind of touched on it last week that it's probably not going to be RFK based on his relationship with old Brad there. But I got a feeling that just about anywhere is probably going to be a step up, which I hate to say that about RCR, man. I'm a big RCR fan. I want them to run well, but they just they're not there. And I do not want to see Kyle Busch. I mean, you said he could finish his career out at RCR. Well, I think his career's finished if he stays at RCR. So, to be honest with you, he needs to go somewhere, and I think Spire's the place if he can make it happen.
Paul, Spire seems to be the odds-on favorite here. But one more I would throw out there for you. If Kyle is going to make this jump to Dodge, and Dodge is going to invest all this money, I think they need to make a splash. And we saw what Kyle did in Toyota's first year with JGR, their second year in the Cup Series, how big he helped develop that entire Toyota program. If I'm Dodge, that's what I'd be trying to do is go after KFB.
Yeah, he has a relationship. He did race a couple O'Reilly's races with colleague a couple of years ago, and I feel like he still might have some sort of a relationship. He at least has somebody's phone number. So Spire would be, the go-to fit. I mean, he does the truck races with them, and they've had a lot of success with that. But you mentioned colleague, like that would be huge. We just have to see what Dodge's plans are and see what they want to do as far as moving forward.
Yeah, he'll have options. They might be limited, but he will have options to upgrade his ride and leave RCR next season. Dom, what else we got?
Well, Tyler, if this one's a superstition, if this is something that's going to be talked about this weekend because it was brought up on another podcast, the Door Bumper Clear podcast, Noah Gragson and Chase Briscoe also had 3 drivers back up their claim that because the race this weekend in Texas will also be occurring during a waxing crescent moon phase, that this will add grip to the racetrack. And when you look at the stats provided by NASCAR Insights, drivers that are active that have won during a waxing crescent moon phase include Kyle Busch with 17 victories. He leads all active drivers with that. Denny Hamlin with 13, Brad Keselowski with 8, Joey Logano with 7. Drivers have won during this waxing crescent phase. And I'm glad we have 2 drivers here, Tyler, that could actually either disprove or confirm this theory that there is more grip during this moon phase.
Yes. So Gregson and Briscoe talked about this on Door Bumper Clear, and Gregson called up a couple different drivers on the show, and they all confirmed this to be real. I don't know if everybody's in on a joke here or if they're being serious. Matt, do you think there's actually something to this?
Um, well, I didn't really want to give away the secrets, but I guess the cat's out of the bag, right? So, yeah, yeah, there's something to it.
Please explain more.
Look,
What is this
look,
going to
I'm
do?
I'm not a scientist, but the track's gonna have more grip. That's all I can tell you.
And so then for the dummies at home, what does more grip mean?
I mean, they're basically gonna be wide open. I mean, they're probably not even gonna have to lift this weekend. So it's gonna be I mean, at Texas, Texas will be interesting. They're gonna have a pretty good opportunity to go pretty quick. Maybe even a track record. I don't know, but it's gonna be pretty quick. That's all I know.
Paul, that sounds exciting to me if this is true.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens this weekend. I think the more grip you have, it might not lead to that exciting of racing. Let's just be honest, because they'll all be glued to the racetrack. No one will be out of control, and you'll have a lot more, I'd say, single file racing, especially that turn 1 and 2 at Texas is pretty treacherous. But if there's more grip on the racetrack, they're going to be glued wide open.
There will be, and there will be.
Yeah, so that's that may be a detriment to the fan experience, but not necessarily to the driver.
Yeah, this is fascinating to me. I did not know this was a thing till today when I was seeing everybody talk about it. So I'm a bit skeptical how real this actually is till it comes to fruition. But Dom, I mean, crazy, right? Like the moon here. Like I'm not even a fan of the moon. It just kind of sits there and does its own thing. I think the moon's kind of boring. There's a girl I used to work with. She used to journal the moon every time it changed. I thought she was a bit of a weirdo. Um, but Dom, like these drivers try to find every advantage they can. We'll see here.
It seems like it's something out of superstition, maybe, maybe not. I don't know. It's a fun coincidence, kind of like the whole Figgy Earnhardt thing when Junior was pressed on that. Hey, Junior, is Figgy real? He goes, I've looked at the genealogy. He just left it at that. Maybe that's what the
This
drivers are doing here, Tyler.
this kind of reminds me of Darrell Waltrip's awful vortex theory and everything that came of that. That
Hey,
oh, the
don't you
cars
dare.
push away the ring.
Don't you dare talk
Oh,
about the
I went
vortex
there.
theory in this way. All right. This is real, man. We were talking about this. Paul, I think we were talking about this in Kansas, weren't we? I mean, I'm
Yes,
pretty sure. So, well, I mean, as soon
yes.
as the cars started going around, tornado sirens were going off. I mean, it was like, I'm telling you, man, it's real.
Yeah, we asked our good friend Brandon Lawson about it a couple of years ago, and meteorologist Brandon Lawson about it a couple of years ago. He can't disprove it, so it wouldn't be necessarily a bad theory.
So Dom went over the numbers from NASCAR of active drivers with the most wins during this crescent moon phase, and Kyle Busch being at the top. Okay, we can write him off. Um, Matt, who does this actually potentially benefit of having more grip?
Can you imagine though? Because RCR is lacking power. So, I mean, they're just going to be wide open and they're going to have all this grip and it's going to work out for him. Kyle Busch is going to find victory lane again. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that that is probably still not going to happen, even if they have more grip. But by the stat book, it says Kyle Busch is going to be pretty good. So, if we're going to go with the same team that he was with, we'll say the 54 team and Ty Gibbs. That's who it'll benefit.
Okay, okay. Ty Gibbs had a good run a couple weeks ago at Bristol, so yeah, maybe we'll see. Um, all right. Enough of that and that nonsense of the waxing crescent moon phase. What else we got, Dom?
Lines before we get on out of here with Steve O'Donnell, who has now been installed as the new CEO of NASCAR, I might add, this past weekend at Talladega Super Speedway. Went on another podcast, The Teardown, with friend of the show, Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi. And in a wide-ranging interview, one of the interesting sound bites, Tyler, he said he believes that NASCAR thinks that they can be the biggest sport in the world. And is that far off? Is that a long way to go? He talks about that in the podcast. But I will say, Tyler, I remember in the 2000s, you're old enough to remember this too, because Paul and Matt are too young for this, where NASCAR was the second most popular sport in the country behind the NFL. Even the casual fans had NASCAR merchandise. You saw a lot of activations at supermarkets. You saw commercials on television outside of a race weekend involving some sort of driver. So these younglings don't know what we're talking about here, but NASCAR was the number 2 sport in the country at one point. O'Donnell would like for it to supersede that and become number 1 again.
All right, so let's break this down in two parts. Let's start with Steve O'Donnell becoming CEO of NASCAR. Um, I think it's a it's a positive in this sense that it's not a France family member involved. That's a very good thing. The sport needed something beyond the France family. But Steve O'Donnell has been so associated with the France family, his last name might as well be France at this point. Here's where I'm concerned about Steve-O becoming CEO. You could credit Steve for some of the bad ideas, some of the biggest mistakes potentially that fans don't like that are going on in the sport right now. He is credited with inventing the old playoff system in the top three series, stage racing, which is still a big debate of discussion to this day, and the development of the next gen car, which is not everybody's favorite either these days. Those were all by way of Steve O'Donnell, and there's plenty of others. So, Matt, I'll go to you first, and I know you got to tread lightly so you don't get fined here. But your thoughts on Steve O'Donnell becoming CEO of NASCAR, good or bad?
I think for the most part, at this point in time, a change is probably a good thing. Steve's been around the sport for a very long time, obviously been a part of that upper level, C-suite, kind of position in NASCAR for a long time. So he probably does know it better than anyone that's not a France, right? So you would think, even if he's made decisions that ultimately we've gone away from, that maybe you look at as a mistake, or some people look at as a mistake. I mean, at worst case, we've learned, and um, it seems like overall NASCAR's got a good direction at this point in time. We'll see how that goes over the next few years, but I'm gonna go out on a limb. I'm gonna be optimistic and say I think it's a good change. So we'll kind of see where he goes with it, but time will tell.
Paul, big changes for NASCAR with Steve Phelps resigning a few months ago, and now Jim France taking a step back. And also Ben Kennedy now gets promoted as well in this new leadership role here.
Well, I also have an ARCA license, so I have to a little bit tread lightly like Matt here. But nonetheless, I think we should also credit some of the great things that Steve O'Donnell and team have been a part of. Like the Chicago Street Course. That, as a fan, for me, that was one of the best experiences I've ever had as a fan. And the things that they are doing to try to make the sport better. Hey, you can throw some darts at the dartboard and be wrong sometimes, but I feel like we have to give them credit. The sport does need to evolve, and I think the leadership team is aware of that. But we also need to not evolve too far to where we forget about our roots. And I think Steve O'Donnell knows that. I've listened to a few podcasts that he's been a part of, and I think that with him, with Ben Kennedy, who has also raced with many teams in the NASCAR world, it's going to be, if they lose something, there will still be a bright spot in that. So I'm optimistic. Glass is half full for me.
Dom, in your opinion, is Steve O'Donnell the right man to lead NASCAR in this next era?
So, yes. And someone who's been around the sport, someone who's been at the executive level for as long as he has. And like you said, he's not a France. He might have fresh perspective, fresh ideas. Yeah, he's tied to the France family, but oftentimes you'll see not just NASCAR, but organizations tend to promote from within. So here's an opportunity for someone to come in and be able to really try to make some changes that they would like to see fit. It, like you said, it's going to be a tall order to make this the number one sport, but it seems like it's a challenge he's up for. And if he believes it and he gets the people rallying around him to believe it too, you've got your buy-in.
Now, another question I have, and then we'll get to the idea of NASCAR being the number one sport, what they need to do that. Now, France family is not at the top of leadership. They still own the thing, of course. Do we think the sport is headed for a sale anytime soon? Do we think that the Frances sell a minority stake or potentially sell the whole thing or maybe go public? There's already been some rumblings that Liberty Media is interested in buying NASCAR. There's been talk about TKO, who owns the UFC and the WWE, of potentially wanting to buy NASCAR. What do we think, Dom? Do we think that NASCAR, whether it's minority stake or the whole thing, is it potentially up for sale anytime soon?
Everything's on the table for the right price, and I feel like we've had Jerry Jordan on the show in the past talk about this, and I feel like we've all seen the headlines too, maybe before the COVID pandemic, that NASCAR was interested in selling. I feel like it came up again in 24 or 25. So I think, for honestly, anything in theory could be up for sale for the right price, and you see Fox invest how they've done with IndyCar, and I believe they're the minority stakeholder there with the IndyCar series. Like you said, Liberty Media, NBC Universal, wasn't that also a potential buyer that was talked about last year or 2 years ago, or at least their name had been mentioned? So you can't rule any of it out. I don't know if that's something that would happen later rather than sooner, but it's a very intriguing thought to ponder.
I would think, Matt, that it's more likely if NASCAR sells that they go to an entity rather than going to be a public company. I don't think NASCAR wants all their business and information out there to the public and be behind investors and all that. I think the more likely course of action is another private entity. And maybe I think if they are going to sell, probably they go to one of these companies and they give them a certain percentage, and then maybe they have the option down the road to purchase the whole thing. I still think we're a while before the France family could potentially get completely out of this.
Right. Yeah. And that's probably not a bad take, to be honest with you. Personally, I kind of hope it doesn't happen. But it's really hard to say the direction it's going to go. It doesn't. I mean, to me, I don't foresee them selling it, quite frankly, especially with Ben Kennedy in the wings and obviously having, still plenty of Francis around at this point in time to kind of keep control of that. But if they ever did decide to sell, I think that's probably not a bad take that they're going to go that route with it. I mean, a lot of stuff kind of got put out in the open through this most recent, court experience, but through NASCAR. But I don't think I think you're right that they really don't want all that business out there, and racing in general is kind of that way. I think the industry as a whole. So I would agree with you. It's probably going to be more on the private side.
Well, and we mentioned that TKO is rumored to be one of the entities that's interested in buying NASCAR. And a very similar situation with the WWE. The McMahons, it was thought that Vince was never going to let go of the WWE and that Vince was going to line up his family to be involved in that for a very long time. Then he sells to TKO, and Vince stayed on board. Triple H and Stephanie all stayed on board. Vince ends up leaving, and then Triple H, his son-in-law, ends up taking control and runs the WWE for TKO. So somebody, Paul, like a TKO, I would think if it's them or somebody, would be wise if they're going to buy NASCAR to keep people, whether it's the O'Donnells, the Kennedys, or people with the France last name involved that know NASCAR, know how this business works.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like when a business, like a smaller business, will say, the family's getting older and they still need somebody that advises them to run the business successfully in the right way. So I think if anybody like TKO, NBC Universal, if they end up making a purchase or even a minority stake, the Kennedys and the O'Donnells, they're still going to be around, and they've had so many years, and honestly, they're still relatively young. So it would be wise if there is any purchase of anything like of that nature, that to keep an O'Donnell or a Kennedy under the wing.
All right. So the next part of what Don was talking about, Steve O'Donnell's got big goals. He wants NASCAR to be the number one sport. He didn't say in America. He said in the world was his goal that he has for NASCAR. And Matt, I like that. I like hearing that, but it's easier said than done. There's a long ways to go. What does NASCAR need to do to become the number one sport in the world?
Definitely kind of like we talk about the A team and it not just being a crew chief change. I don't think it's just a CEO change, right? That's going to take NASCAR to that next level, um, by any means. But I think it's a great outlook. I think you have to have big picture outlook and big goals like that if you want to go somewhere. So hopefully, that'll help carry the sport forward for the right reasons. Um, in terms of what they need to do, there's a lot of different things, but I honestly I don't disagree that it could be there. I mean, you look at F1 and right now F1 in the world overall probably is the largest form of motorsports and would most people would consider it the top echelon of motorsports. I would argue that NASCAR is that um, already, just maybe not to the same level globally in terms of popularity, but I think it could be. I mean, you've got twice as many, if not more, teams, twice as many, if not more, competitors who, that's twice as many personalities, on social media. You can cover a lot of ground and a lot of bases with that. So I think there's a lot of opportunity that NASCAR has that an entity like F1 honestly doesn't have quite as much of. And the personality side of it, I think, is the most important thing. And that's what F1 does the best job of. And even though they have less, they do a great job of showcasing the personalities, and maybe less is more. But ultimately, on the NASCAR side, I think that really is where the biggest opportunity is in highlighting the drivers. And we're kind of seeing more grassroots guys getting up into the sport. I think that's a very big key into this. It's not the um, people call them silver spoon, but really just drivers that come from a lot of money, quite frankly, that I mean, don't really have to work for it, right? They just kind of get put into it or they have a family connection or whatever. Um, you know, I don't know how you can have a real outlook or really connect with real people who are dealing with reality every day when that's been your lifestyle for your whole life, right? So I think having more grassroots guys, having more personality in the sport is really the way to go, and the way to grow it going forward.
Now, Dom, I focused on the word world. He didn't say America on NASCAR being number one. And it's a fine line you have to approach with this, right? Because we saw that when NASCAR was the number two sport, as you were alluding to earlier, they tried to expand their base and reach more people across the nation and grow this out of the Southern brand, and that backfired very badly and set NASCAR back for a number of reasons. And so, if you have this goal, this aspiration to be the number one sport in the world, how do you find that balance of we're going to stay true to our core and our identity and not lose our core fan base, but also still expand it globally as well? That's easier said than done.
Easier said than done. Couple thoughts on that. It gets kind of like I think when we all get irked when they say world champions and the NFL has all 32 teams in the United States. Okay. Now they're playing more games around the world, so maybe there's a little more flexibility there. You're going to have to expand the market, but you're also not going to have to alienate the fan base that you currently have. So does that look by means of doubleheader races like how we saw at Pocono and Dover or North Wilkesboro or Rockingham, where you can still have concentration of races, but if you're going to have global races, you're also going to have to account for the logistics on that. Maybe that's the balance where there's races in Brazil, there's races in Canada and Mexico. You start small and kind of just put your footprint around the map around the world. But easier said than done. That's going to take a long time to build up to, but that's how you keep your fan base. You don't get rid of all the staples on the racetrack that everyone's used to, that have been on the schedule since the 40s and 50s. But if you're expanding tracks out, there will be some sacrificing and some growing pains that need to happen with that.
Paul, I would say another thing too is there's got to be more international drivers to this as well. I think that you look at SVG, Daniel Suarez, beyond what they've done getting in victory lane, I think both of them have done a lot for the sport to grow it internationally with Daniel's large fan base in Mexico, and we saw how big of a homecoming that was for him last year in Mexico City. SVG, what he's done to put NASCAR on the map in New Zealand and Australia. I would anticipate that as the sport grows and they try to make more of an international outreach, there's going to need to be more international drivers that come along with that as well.
I would agree with that. I would say another thing too that would help a lot with that international growth. We saw how awesome Garage 56 and go into Le Mans was. Like, that was probably one of the best things for like international reach, because like it didn't go too far from our roots. Like, I love the picture of all the small prototype cars in front of the giant monstrous Camaro that was in the background. Like, that's so cool, and that is our identity. You know, we're just a bunch of stock car racers, and all the videos of that, it was super cool. But that international presence, we do need a few more drivers like that. Now, I did want to mention too, uh, over the off season, that little exhibition that was done at wherever in Japan, that brought a lot of attention, and a lot of people from all over Asia over to Japan. So maybe drivers from specific markets, like say Kamui Kobayashi, or someone from Brazil, South America, Europe, that influence coming over to NASCAR, that could very well pay dividends in the future, bringing international drivers in that way.
Yeah, yeah, certainly so. Dom, what else we got? We're looking ahead to Texas, or we have something else first?
Looking ahead to Texas, let's take a look at the odds as the Worth 400 will take place at Texas Motor Speedway this weekend. NASCAR O'Reilly action, and of course the NASCAR Cup Series and the Truck Series. All three of the National Touring Series on track in the Truck Series at Texas Motor Speedway, rather. But looking ahead to the odds, let's just get straight into them. Tyler Reddick and Denny Hamlin are your co-favorites at 5-1 or plus 500. Kyle Larson at plus 550. Christopher Bell and Ryan Blaney each at 10-1 or plus 1,000. William Byron, a past Texas winner, along with Chase Elliott, each at 1,200 and 1,400 respectively. Ty Gibbs plus 1,500 along with Bubba Wallace. Carson Osavar, Chase Briscoe, and Chris Buescher each coming in at 1,600. And Brad Keselowski and Joey Logano each with a lot of success at Texas Motor Speedway, 20-1. Austin Cindric and Daniel Suarez at 50-1. And as you look down the rest of the list, some of your longest shots include Ty Dillon at 750-1, Cole Custer 1,000-1, Cody Ware 2,000-1, Chad Fincham 25-1. And of course, with it being the odds and noting information, it is not gambling or investment advice. These odds are just for entertainment purposes only.
I am not going to be the one that picks against Tyler Reddick on a mile and a half. So I will go with Tyler Reddick to get it done this weekend. Paul, you're our guest. You go first. Who wins this weekend at Texas in the Worth 400?
Well, it's hard to bet against a Ford at Texas. I mean, we've seen Joey Logano be successful there. I have to say Ryan Blaney. You know, he's had momentum all season. Whether his pit crew gets it done, that's another thing. But I feel like if Blaney doesn't win, he's going to dominate. So I think Ryan Blaney.
Okay. So Paul's going Blaney. Dominic, how about you?
Oh man, you're gonna make me pick next. Okay, looking at the list, gosh, give me Denny Hamlin to get win number 2 on the season.
Okay. So 3 different picks so far. Matt, do you agree with any of us, or are you going with somebody unique yourself?
Well, looking at the trajectory of the moon and the sun, I'm gonna say Kyle Larson gets it done. He's due.
Okay. It's been almost a year since Kyle Larson got back to victory lane. So we'll see who gets it done this weekend at Texas Motor Speedway. Before we get out of here, Paul, what's on tap for you? What do you got coming ahead, and where can people follow you and find all the stuff you're doing, man?
Well, you can follow me on Instagram at Paul Fodde, or Facebook. I have a page, Paul Fodde Racing. I also have YouTube as well. I don't really use TikTok, so if you follow me there, great, but I don't really post much to it. I'm working on some things in the future, volunteering, helping out where I can. Kemp, I think we've got a race on the schedule here coming up that we're both going to end up being at. But stay tuned to those pages. I'm working hard on some big things here happening, hopefully in the ARCA series. So stick around. I'll let you guys know.
Matt, what's going on with you, brother?
Man, we got a weekend off. I felt like you the last couple weekends traveling all over the place. So, uh, no, this upcoming weekend we're gonna be catching up on some stuff around the house, probably working around the yard a little bit, and um, yeah, yeah, pretty much getting ready for our next opportunity. That's about it.
There you go. That means that Matt's going to be hanging around at home watching Yellowstone. That's what he's trying to tell us.
We'll find out.
Dominic, I will be seeing your ugly face this weekend, right?
Only on Sunday, thankfully. Yes,
Okay.
yes. The Phillies views. No, I'll be at the race weekend at Texas Motor Speedway. Marcus Lino, myself will be representing the racing experts there on site, on coverage. Yeah, Matt, you've met Marcus, so you know how much fun he can be. So he's going to be at the racetrack with us this weekend. Tyler, you've met him too, so it'll be a great team. But even more fun too, getting to take Felice and Christopher along for the ride as well. So it's going to be a great weekend. I'm looking forward to begrudgingly seeing you this weekend, Tyler.
We'll see if Christopher can actually survive the noise this time. We'll tell Kim Starr about that one.
Let's see if you actually don't make him cry when you pick him up because you did that the first time.
Yeah, he's a little shit sometimes, Yeah, but no, it'll be great to see you. In all seriousness, excited. A home game this weekend for me. Get to go to a race and sleep in my own bed. What is this? It should be a lot of fun at Texas Motor Speedway. I'll be there. Jonathan Feld will be there, and Brett Alper will have a three-man crew with us for NASCAR Roundtable. Follow all of our coverage all weekend long from Texas Motor Speedway at NASCARRoundtable.com. And I think, gentlemen, I'm going to bring out the cowboy hat this weekend. I think I have to for TMS.
Worked on a ranch. He's never done branding. He's never baled hay, but he's okay wearing the cowboy hat.
How do you know I haven't done those things?
You told me.
Okay.
Have you won at Texas Motor Speedway? I know you've won at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We saw the
I've
pictures earlier this
driven
year.
on Texas Motor Speedway for 10 laps, which is something that Dominic has not done.
You might
I
be
would
able to
like to
count
think
that.
I won.
You might be able to count that.
Okay.
Maybe.
The Team
Yeah,
Texas
in fact,
David
he's the
Starr
only
driving
person
school.
here that has experience at Texas Motor Speedway. None of the three of us combined have any
That's true.
hot track experience, unlike
What
Tyler.
I know the
what would
passing
David Starr
points.
what would David
Yeah.
Starr think if you wore a cowboy hat at Texas?
That's awesome, buddy.
I
That's what he'd
love
think.
it.
On that note, we will put the checkered flag out and get out of this edition of the Racing Roundtable. Subscribe to the show. New episodes out each and every week. Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. Leave us a 5-star review or don't leave us one at all. Hit the like button. We certainly would appreciate it. Follow us on social media. Check out the Studio Soapbox Network, this show, the Jones Report on all podcast platforms. And we'll be right back here next week. For Paul, Matt, Dominic, I'm Tyler Jones. Thanks so long. It's been another edition of the Racing Roundtable. We'll see you next time.